Hey everyone, I'm Grant and welcome back to the channel. So, I've been playing around with my Jeep for a couple of weeks now. I haven't really been filming it because there have been really just one major issue that I can't seem to solve. And I thought at first it was the TCU, and then I thought it was the idle on the injection pump for my Kubota V2403, and that is the engagement when I go from a free idle, meaning park or neutral, into reverse or drive. Every time I drop it into a gear, it literally spins my rear tires, and because I have a limited slip differential, both rear tires chirp, and I know I'm not doing my universal joints any favors. So after really looking into it and doing a bunch of research for the last couple of weeks and talking to a lot of transmission shops, I have come to the realization and the discovery that the stall speed on the torque converter that came with my 6R80 is too low for my diesel engine. Right now I did a quick test and my stall speed is around 1450 RPM. Now I have found a shop that if I mail them my torque converter, they will be able to modify it to have a higher stall. We're aiming for about a 2000 to 2050 stall speed. Again, all of it's relative, but more importantly, it should take care of the issue of the engine basically trying to stall when I'm in gear. Right now, this engine's idling right at 550 RPM and the whole hood shakes and the entire Jeep is not happy. If you're going at speed on the road, it's great, but trying to even wheel this at low speeds on my property is just not a fun experience. So with that said, I'm going to get to work on removing the engine because honestly, that's going to be the easiest way for me to access the torque converter. So I'm going to get to it. I will say, when I'm going to pull it this time, I'm not going to take it as far apart as I've done in the past. I'm going to try to keep as much of this together as possible. So, meaning, I'm going to try to keep this bar here. Don't know if I'm going to keep the intercooler there, though that one's pretty easy to remove. But, yeah, definitely wasn't planning on doing this again. Big mistake I made. I was so confident that this was going to work perfectly that put coolant in the radiator. Should have just put water. I should have known I was going to have to take this back apart again. So, a little bit of a fail on my part. But to just kind of go over, essentially, the torque converter is too tight right now. It won't let the engine free idle when it's in gear. Ow, that hurt. And it's actually causing several issues. Aside from the rough idle, I am burning way more fuel than I used to. That was the other thing I noticed. I am going through diesel fuel really quick. And going back and reviewing the footage, I was putting out way more black smoke than I used to. I never used to put out that much black smoke with this setup. So I'm really hoping this fixes quite a bit of issues. It actually might really help all my thermal issues as well with my intercooler setup. I've got a couple of theories on what's going on with that. Because this time around, after about 20 minutes of driving, this really would start to heat soak. And it really shouldn't be heat soaking, not at the speeds I'm going. I'll be back once that has drained, because once that's drained, I can take off the entire front grille and get access to everything else. So, be back in a moment. Battery died on my GoPro and I didn't realize it. I've removed the grille and I'm starting to remove all the electrical connections on the engine so I can put the engine hoist on it and start removing it. Okay, we're getting close to pulling this motor. Still gotta undo the serpentine. I knew I was forgetting something. And by serpentine, what I actually mean is I gotta pull off the power steering pump pulley. The reason for that is I don't like disconnecting it because it was not the easiest thing in the world to bleed. So, in my desire to not have to do that again, I just unbolt the power steering pump pulley. I leave it resting on the frame. I don't have to bleed it. All right. Now, our steering pump just sit there out of the way. I have all the sensors disconnected. I have the supply and return line disconnected. I have all the grounds disconnected that I need to disconnect at the moment. I do have one more ground left, but it's not that important. What I have learned from taking this engine out as many times as I have is, instead of undoing the bolt going through the mounts that then mount onto the frame, just undo the frame mounts. Undo the top bolt, undo the bottom bolt, and lift it off as one, and it works perfectly. Now, I need to support the transmission because it is ridiculously heavy, but that's going to be easy enough to do. Once we have the transmission supported, I then need to remove the 4 torque converter bolts. Sorry, torque converter nuts. The 6R80 torque converter has 4 studs, so I need to remove the 4 nuts. I need to support the transmission. I need to get my engine hoist connected to my diesel engine. I can then undo all the fasteners holding the engine to the transmission, and then hopefully we can quite easily lift the engine out and have access to the torque converter. So far this is going very well. I'm only into this in about hour and 15 minutes. So, let me get back. Well, that failed. All right, everyone, all things considered, that went by very quickly. In total, this took me, with stopping and going to check other things, not including that, this took me just under 2 hours to pull and remove the engine. Just shows you how many times I have done it. Now, the only hiccup I ran into is the torque converter came out with the engine. I already had a towel underneath there, so I'm kind of grateful for that because I knew a leak was coming. So when I realized the torque converter was with the engine, I tried grabbing it, but I wasn't able to, and it did slip and fall onto the towel. Now, it only fell about a foot, but the good thing is I'm shipping this off to get rebuilt anyway, so I'm really not too concerned about it. So I'm going to package it up and ship it out tomorrow, and I'm going to interrupt myself right there. So it has been about 5.5 weeks since the footage you just finished watching. And I had packaged up the torque converter. I had mailed it through the post office to the company that was going to be able to modify it for me, and it never arrived. It has now been missing for 5 weeks. I am filing a lost package claim. I did insure it, so I'm getting my money back. Now, I called quite a few torque converter shops and trying to get someone that could make a torque converter for a 2006 TJ Wrangler with a 2012 Ford F-150 automatic transmission that was set up for a 2007 Kubota turbo diesel turned out to be quite a bit of a challenge. But I finally found a company called Circle D, and they were able to work with me, and they are currently making me a torque converter for my setup. The downside, it's not going to be ready for another 4 weeks. So that's the only update I have for you right now. But anyway, it's YouTube. You know what to do. Take out more than you bring, tread lightly, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.